This is air cutting. Air cutting is really bad for your scissors.
No, don't explain anything yet.
Marketing Corn says that we'll explain why it's bad at the very end of the video because
if we take a look at our metrics, we'll see that watch time
watch time analytics. That's his stuff to deal with. Anyways, onwards. My name's Cornelius Quiring. That's my logo. That's my word mark. And Cornelius.ooh is my website. And let's learn all about our fancy scissors. Good scissors actually have curved blades. That's right, curved. More specifically, the inside of the blade has an ever so slight concave to it. Editing Corn draws a quick little graphic there. If you look closely, you can see my thumb in that little gap there. The way our scissors work is when they're fully open like this, the blades are actually crossing over each other a little bit, like that. And then, as we proceed to cut or close them, what's happening is the edges of the blade are pushing up against each other until they're fully closed and there's that little bit of a gap existing. But why do we actually want this curve? Well, if our scissors were completely flat on the inside, as we close them more, there's more surface area touching, increasing the friction. However, by curving the blades, the only part that's actually touching is the part where the cutting is happening, reducing the friction, making for a simpler, smoother, cleaner, easier cut. A more extreme example that better demonstrates this is these thread snips that I have. See how that gap forms as I close them? Now, pinking shears, I find these to be fascinating feats of engineering. These scissors are used to do wavy or zigzag edges. It can be purely decorative or used to reduce the fraying on the edge of our fabric. But what makes them engineering feats is watch how the angle of this V changes as I close them. So what that means is every single one of these teeth has to be at a slightly different angle than the one that came before it, just so that these scissors can actually cut. And yes, pinking shears can be sharpened, but once again, each one of these teeth has to be individually sharpened one at a time. For the blades of a pair of scissors, we've essentially got two options. The first option is what's known as a knife's edge blade. And essentially what that means is that both the inside of the blade are smooth as well as the top angled bit. This is the most common style of blade you're going to see on a pair of scissors. It's the kind of thing you're probably used to. But here's the thing. A well-made pair of scissors is actually sharpened by hand. Even a company that makes cheap scissors does a pretty decent job of sharpening the center of the blade. But it's the tip and the very far end that require the finesse that can only be achieved by doing it by hand. So, pro tip, next time you're trying out a new pair of scissors, don't do the standard cut halfway into the pair of scissors to try them. Instead, just snip with the very tip to see how nice and sharp that is. Or, alternatively, go as deep as you can to the very end and then cut along. Now, when it comes to sharpening these types of blades, I suggest just pay a professional to do it. It's surprisingly affordable. But hold on, Corn, there's scissor sharpening tools that I can buy online. Why wouldn't I do that? Every pair of scissors has a unique angle to them, and some of these kits don't offer the option to adjust said angle when sharpening, and so you're more likely to ruin them than to actually do a good job. Oh, and there's this myth that if you cut aluminum foil, aluminum cans, or on glass, that's going to help sharpen the scissors. And at best, what that does is it removes some of the micro burrs on the blade. It's definitely not sharpening the blades. Just pay the professionals. Now your other option is a serrated blade. What makes these blades useful is that those little teeth do a fantastic job of holding on to my fabric. This is great for slippery fabrics like silks, satins, and linings, or really light and delicate fabrics like chiffon. Now, something worth keeping in mind when it comes to serrated blades is that they cannot be sharpened. Marketing corn! You told me we were going to wait till the very end to do the sales pitch of all these amazing scissors, including my collaborative gift set available at that URL right there, which comes with one free course. I mean, come on! So uncouth, am I right? Or click the link down in the description. For the handles, we again have two options. The first being an East Asian style handle, like this one here. East Asian because, well, that's where this style is most commonly made. These handles are very specific to the hand that you cut with. So I've got my left-handed scissors here, and you see how there's a really flat, smooth part here? That's meant to sit up against the base of my thumb there, and then underneath, the bottom piece swoops up and around, so that way, when I have my fingers in, it sits really nice and comfortable. These, of course, are left-handed scissors. This is perfectly mirrored in the opposite direction for right-handed scissors. These scissors are going to make my fingers go numb if I use them in the wrong hand, but are super comfortable if I make sure to have them in the right hand. The other option is what's known as a European handle, and that's the much more ambidextrous option because they're exactly the same on both sides and can be used in either hand. Editing corn, can I get you to overlay a picture of actual fabric shears with a European style handle? Thanks. Now, which one's better? Well, it really comes down to personal preference, so try both and see which one you like. In terms of material, again, surprise, surprise, two options, carbon steel or stainless steel. Carbon steel is a little bit of a lighter material, so it's good if you don't want your scissors too heavy or if you've got arthritis and things. It's also a slightly softer metal, which means it can be sharpened to a finer point, so woo, super sharp. However, that also means it's going to go dull a little bit quicker. And carbon steel has a slightly higher chance of rusting. But what are your scissors doing close or near water, huh? Stainless steel is a little bit of a heavier material, so if you like a little bit of weight and harumph to your scissors, go stainless steel. It's also a harder and more brittle material, which means a bit more difficult to sharpen, but they'll stay sharper longer and less likely to rust. Which one's better? Well, once more, it's personal preference. You choose. Try both. See which one you like. Bigger is not always better, especially when it comes to scissors. The first pair of fancy scissors I got myself was a big old pair of 12 inchers. It's what I saw the shopkeepers in the fabric stores using, so surely that must be the right one, you know? Oh, and I should point out, the way a scissor is measured is from the very tip to the far end. So this here is a 10-inch scissor. Here's the thing. A good pair of scissors should feel like a natural extension of your hand. They shouldn't be working against you, but with you. As for the size that's right for you, well, that's very much a personal preference. Size and weight are the most subjective parts of choosing the right pair of scissors. If you'd like a little guidance for a starting point, 8 to 9-inch scissors tend to be the most popular. And then as the size of your hand increases, or if you're a little burlier, you might want to start going up a little bit in size. And the best way to find out which ones are right just for you is, if possible, try as many different types of scissors as you can and see what feels right to you. I swear, if you didn't pay most of the bills around here, marketing corn, I'd have fired you a long time ago. Sewing and pattern drafting classes. Are you happy? And finally, if we take good care of our scissors, well, we've got a lifelong friend in our hands. The simplest and best maintenance we can do is to use a dry soft cloth, a bit like this glass wiping one here, and wiping down the blades to get any lint and debris off of there. Lint, as soft as it may appear, ends up being an abrasive material that just scratches up our blades quicker than need be. Now, we oil our sewing machines on a regular basis because there's so many moving parts. We are oiling our machines, right? Well, we should be oiling the moving part on our scissors as well. We just use a good old-fashioned sewing machine oil, but even an olive oil will work in a pinch. Just put a couple drops on the button here, or pivot as it's officially known. A couple drops in between the blades as well, and then just work that in there, going back and forth. Next, I like to soak a little scrap of fabric with some oil. And then I'm going to wipe down the blades as well on both sides, all around. And then with another soft scrap of fabric, go ahead and wipe that off as much as I can all around. Finally, some test snips just to make sure that I'm not leaving behind any oily residue on my fabrics. What that's going to do is make sure that we have a nice smooth operation at our pivot here. And for the blades, even though we wiped that oil off of there, it still leaves a very thin microfilm on there to protect it against humidity and moisture, which in turn prevents rust. In fact, that's why fancy new scissors often show up with very oily blades. They're being shipped in containers on the sea. I hear water's involved. But also in the back of semi-trailers, the humidity and moisture is not controlled, so oil for rust protection. In terms of frequency, once a month, every couple of months is recommended. But really I find just as they get a little harder to work or a little stickier in the button here, they can use an oiling. Oh, right, air cutting. I need to fulfill that promise. Let's talk about air cutting. Okay, finally, let's get back to this air cutting business. Quite simply, what's happening when we do this is that there's metal on metal scratching and grinding happening, and we do that enough times and it's going to damage the insides of our blades, which are the most important part. When we're cutting our fabric, this material is actually working as a bit of a barrier between the two blades, which in turn is preventing the metal on metal grinding from happening. So, as delightful as it may sound, let's save our scissors. Let's not air cut. And now, I pass my talking scissors over to you. Are there any interesting details about scissors that I missed that you think others should know? Please leave a comment. Perhaps you have some questions I'll try my best to answer. Again, a comment would be great. Clearly, you're interested in what I've got going on here, so perhaps you might even be interested in the Corncob Club. What's the Corncob Club, you ask? Well, it's for members who want access to my exclusive content. There's a sewing group chat there as well. Big old juicy discounts on courses, and you could even be one of these lucky folks that has their name at the end of the video here. A massive thank you to everyone who is already a member. And if you're interested, just head on over to that URL right there or hit the join button here on YouTube. And to the member in the last video who corrected me, Bye in Spanish is adios. Adios. I'm probably getting the pronunciation a little incorrect, but adios. Surely by now you might have already clicked on this video. If you have, then well, obviously you can't hear what I'm saying, and if you're still here, click.